the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests are producer-director Ben Bradley and casting director Johanna Ray. Producer-director Ben Bradley was born in Georgia and raised, as he says, up and down the East Coast. He graduated from Carroll College in Wisconsin, where he majored in theater. He learned the crafts of acting, directing, designing sets, and lighting at many theaters, including the famed Hansberry Sands Theater Company. Why is the Hansberry Sands so important in the theater world?
Well, it's named after, first of all, two giants in the American theater, at least for the black experience, Lorraine Hansberry and Diana Sand, whose lives both were cut short at a very young age due to cancer and so forth. So that was the reason why we named it that.
Lorraine Hansberry had many plays on Broadway.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, a few years ago at the Fountain, we did a revival of To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. So it was quite a wonderful success.
Did you think that working at that theater company was a boost in your career? Did it help your career?
Well, it helped me hone my craft, is what it did.
That's what
so it was did it just offer, you know, performance opportunities and so forth. It was also an outlet for continuing education. So.
Oh, what for you?
Oh yeah.
In particular, because you had to do everything.
Oh, had to do everything, and then we made it a point to reach out into the community and bring the young people in as well.
Oh, I see. Where did you go before that, coming to the Fountain Theater as a resident? Because I'm going to ask you what that title means.
Okay.
But where were you also before the Fountain?
Well, before the Fountain, I had lived and worked in Milwaukee, and I worked basically, you know, through the Midwest, the resident houses, Midwest,
were you
East
acting?
Coast. Yes, primarily an actor. And then later on, once with the Hansberry Sands, I dabbled in directing, and the bug for directing really didn't hit me until about the last couple of years that I lived in the Milwaukee area.
Oh.
And so I got burned out on it and then moved to LA.
Were you doing mostly stage?
Yes,
in the
always stage, always stage.
Because there's not much film or TV back there. Is there
Not
commercials
really.
maybe?
Few commercials, and I did a stint on a locally produced sitcom out of Milwaukee, and I was also an on-air news broadcaster, as well as a classical and jazz disc jockey on the radio too.
Oh, so that's using your voice.
You got it.
You have the title at the Fountain Theater of resident producer, and you direct, and you are in charge of this audience participation, etc. What does the title resident mean, and is that an important
Well,
spot?
by and large, what resident means is that instead of going out to find directors to come in, of course sometimes we do, being the resident director, I pretty much get first dibs on things that are coming through. It's kind of a seniority thing, more so than anything else. You know, we have a structure there. We have co-artistic directors and a producing managing director, and I'm kind of like the fourth man in the organization as far as the administrative structure goes.
Oh, I see. You have Simon Levy.
Simon Levy, Deborah Lawler,
Right.
Stephen Sachs, and myself, and then of course our wonderful tech director Scott Toomey, whom we could not do anything without. And then our sales department is headed by Diana Gibson.
So you all end up working together,
Exactly.
and you have for many years.
I've been with the theater for 13 years, and everyone that I mentioned, with the exception of Diana, have been at the Fountain since its inception 16 years ago.
Wow, and you all get along.
Yes, we
get
do.
along.
We do. But it's like a family, though.
Yes.
And like any family, you have your little spit spats and so forth. But the one thing that I found at the Fountain is that you say what you've got to say, then it's over and done with, and back to the business of the day. It's never personal.
That's so great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the productions there, because you've won awards,
Oh, yeah.
awards after awards. The theater's won awards,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you yourself have won awards for directing. You directed Death Row, the Scottsboro Boys.
Yeah, direct from Death Row.
Who
and,
wrote that?
That was a DC playwright, Mark Stein. And very controversial piece in that it explored the events surrounding the Scottsboro case, which is a very famous case from 1931 where 9 young black boys were accused of raping 2 white women. And it raised a lot of eyebrows in Los Angeles, and also when the piece was first put out there, it's like, well, I shouldn't say the piece, but when the Scottsboro Boys were accused, no one wanted to represent these boys. And as a result, a couple of landmark Supreme Court rulings came out of that case. It was an international affair.
How did you decide on that?
I had always heard about the story of the Scottsboro Boys from my grandmother.
Wasn't it real political, though,
Yes,
to bring
extremely political. It basically had something to say about, you know, whites in America, blacks in America, religious people in America, the legal system in America. So
everything.
it took a swipe at just about everyone.
And the writing covered all of that,
Yes,
obviously.
the writing covered it all.
There's also another play that was at the Fountain on the Iraq War, which is also very political.
Yes, that was what I heard about Iraq based on the article by Elliot Weinberger, and of course adapted and directed by Simon Levy. And it had a very good run from the 11th of September up until just last Saturday night, as a matter of fact.
So it was a very long one. Another award-winning play was Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill.
Yeah, that was essentially a one-woman show with 2 musicians, a dog, and a bartender, and about the life of Billie Holiday.
And that was starred
Peggy Ann Blow,
Peggy Ann
right?
Blow.
14 songs, and then Billie just bearing her soul to us.
Well, who wrote that?
That was oh my goodness! You kind of dropped one on me. Lanny Robertson.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And it was very interesting.
What other work by Robertson?
I haven't done anything else by him, and frankly, that's about the only thing that I'm really familiar of his. Although he has a number of things on the boards. Yes,
I know. His name is very familiar.
Exactly.
But then, how did you decide to do that? Because that ran a long time. That garnered a lot of awards. And how did you know how to direct Billie Holiday?
Well, I had when I saw the script, it just thrilled me for the fact that it just laid Billie's soul right out there on the table for us. And a lot of people would say, well, you know, when you do Billie Holiday, you know, the actress that plays her has got to sound like her. But the emphasis wasn't on, per se, the music. The music is a very integral part, yes, but it was the story and the pain that Billie had gone through. And as a matter of fact, the play took place virtually months before her death. Mm-hmm.
How did it take place? Was there a narrative to it, and then the songs added, or?
Well, the narrative basically is how Billie got into the business and some of the trials and the tribulations that she had on the road, and the undying love.
Who tells that?
Billie tells it all.
Oh,
it's a
she
one-woman
tells it
show.
herself.
Oh yeah, tells it all.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And so it's just her and her musicians on the road playing these little dive gigs and so forth towards the end of her career, because you know her voice was pretty much shot at the end there.
What happens with your audiences? Do you get mixed audiences?
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
get all white audiences? Or?
Definitely so. When I first started at the Fountain Theater, it was you know, primarily a white audience. And over the years, I also have the title of Director of Audience Development.
I know, I saw that. You have this long list of things.
And over the years, I've made it a point to try to have a crossover audience coming to the Fountain Theater. So now we have a subscriber base that's just as white as it is black, which is wonderful. And also there's a Latino crossover, and we're working on the Asian crossover now.
You do Latino. I know I've gone to
Flamenco,
which
yes.
is so brilliant, and the audience really gets it.
Exactly. And that's a mixed audience, and there's a very large Hispanic audience that comes to that.
Do you think it's because of where it's located?
Well,
in Hollywood?
I think that has something to do with it, and also because of what the cultural nature of the program. Even though flamenco is one of the national dances of Spain, mind
right,
you,
but
it's the Mexican American population, the South American population. They're very interested in that, and I'm so pleased now that we're beginning to get a Japanese audience as well.
Well, are you doing any plays that would cater to Japanese mentality?
Got my eyes on a few. Got my eyes on a
you?
few, but I'm not prepared to let that out of the bag. I don't want to jinx it.
But you know, the Japanese theater downtown
Exactly.
does a lot of that, and
I
of course
know.
that's their basic.
I know. That's the audience that they're catering to, and I was really pleased that I think they did a version of Sweeney Todd here not too long ago,
Yes.
and it did very well from what I understand. But that's an audience that we want to approach and embrace as well.
So you're doing a new project by August Wilson.
Yes,
He's a
we are.
wonderful playwright.
Yes, we are.
And his work is so about the people, isn't it?
Yes, it's about my heritage. And we're doing Joe Turner's Come and Gone, set to open in previews in March.
Tell us about the story.
Well, Joe Turner is Come and Gone. First of all, it's the third play in the 10-play cycle that August wrote. He wrote a play for each decade.
Right.
And Joe Turner.
It's the third?
It's the third. It deals with the 1910s through the 1919s, okay? And the central character, two central characters, Bynum and Loomis. Bynum is a root man or a soothsayer or whatever you want to call him, and Loomis is a man that's on a search. He was enslaved by Joe Turner for 7 years, so in this time he lost his wife, and he went looking for her. His search is to find his wife and for his daughter and for himself. And so Bynum basically guides him through the spiritual nature of the play. Now, there are a lot of things that August puts into his plays. One is the Christianity versus traditional African spirituality and so forth. And so August is basically saying that this play is about man's search for his identity.
I see.
And then once you find that identity or what it is you're searching for, there's a sense of peace that comes over you.
You know, it took me a long time to understand his writing because I never thought it went anywhere.
Okay.
It didn't have, you know, like an ending. It always was about people.
Right.
But now you can understand that it's about people.
It
And that's
is.
what you're watching on stage.
It
it's
is.
It's something to identify with.
Have you ever noticed that when you see an August Wilson play, just the sheer of what he calls his people, the names that he gives his
Yes.
people, like Harold Loomis, the herald, the searcher, the seeker, Loomis, luminous, shining, Bynum Walker, the soothsayer or the sage,
walker,
yes, the binder, the bringer.
So there's so much more to what he's
Yes.
doing, symbolism.
And
No,
metaphors,
I haven't
yes.
thought about it, metaphor. Did you ever get to meet him?
No, sadly, I never did. I was in a room with him a long time ago when I worked down at the Los Angeles Theater Center when we did Joe Turner and so forth. He came out to oversee part of the rehearsals, and I was in a room with him, but never got a chance to speak with him.
Do you take from the other plays you've seen to further your direction, or how do you look at it yourself? How do you break down something like that? And how do you know what he wants?
Well,
Or is
you know, with August, there is, his memoirs and so forth, and his autobiographies and so forth, gives you a lot of insight as to how you think he would do it. And then again, in the script itself, August gives you so much information to work with.
Does he?
Yes, so you very seldom are guessing at what he wants you to do. He's very specific about what he wants you to do and the approach that he asks you to take in developing his work.
And how do you cast those kind of shows?
It's very difficult. First of all, everyone wants to do August Wilson. So
mean every
basically,
actor?
every actor wants to do August Wilson. I've just found that out. Okay.
Well, you were doing casting. Was it for this play?
Yes, exactly. As a matter
And
of
what
fact,
do you
coming straight
look-
in from that.
What do you look for?
Well, basically, first of all, I look for an actor that has a respect for his craft, and has a respect for the work.
For August's
Yes,
work.
exactly. And that's how I start. And then
Do
we
you
go
ask
through.
him that question? What do you say?
Well, no, I don't particularly ask him that question. That
wondered.
becomes part of the table work once the show is cast. And it's a tedious process because there are so many wonderfully talented actors out here in LA. And I feel guilty when I look at a pick and resume and say, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. These actors paid money for these things. And here I am just, discarding them, and I feel very guilty about that. But once you've got a cast, when someone walks into the room, you can just feel if that person is right, And it's just kind of an intuition thing sometimes.
You talk about his work and casting him, people that he's written about. What about casting white people in those roles, or casting Latinos?
That's an interesting question that you bring up, Joan, because there's a movement in theater called colorblind casting, or non-ethnic specific casting. And I'm a big proponent of that, don't get me wrong, and what I'm going to say right now might sound like it's a contradiction, mind you, but August writes for a specific culture.
I agree with you, but I'm just throwing this out because of what you did say, colorblind casting.
I think that if you went colorblind with August, I think you'd lose part of the message, or at least you'd muddle the message.
What about the language? Does he write in that language
Yes,
that he wants you to speak?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And that's why it would be, I think, so difficult to do colorblind casting with August. It's either white or black, and those are the issues that he's dealing with.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so,
well, Ben Bradley, thank you for coming today.
Well, it's my pleasure.
I'm here with casting director Johanna Ray, who was born in England but traveled the world with her father, who was a general and honorary physician in the Queen's Medicorps. Joanna, you went to St. James Finishing School. What kind of career were you going to have from finishing school?
Pretty much the career I did have to start with, like a secretary.
Oh, is that right?
Or a wife.
Not an actress.
No, that wasn't meant to be.
That was. Your ex-husband was Aldo Ray, who was a very famous American actor, and he was making film in London?
Yes, he was making a film called The Day They Robbed the Bank of England. And Peter O'Toole, it was his first movie. He played a supporting role in it. And I had a small part in a Jane Mansfield film that she was shooting in England. And our dressing rooms were on the same. There was just one person between us.
Oh, you weren't on the Aldo Ray film?
Oh, no.
You were in another film?
No, I was on another film.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So how did you meet?
But our dressing rooms were practically next to each other, so we would pass each other in the hallway all the time. And it just so happened that the actor that was in the dressing room between us, I knew already, and he happened to be in the film with Aldo. So Aldo and I were flirting, a lot as we passed each other, but I wouldn't talk to him because we hadn't been introduced.
Finishing school.
Right. So then I asked the actor, I said, would you please introduce us?
And that's how it happened?
And that was it.
And then
yes.
it grew to be this big love affair.
Right, well, almost immediately.
And what happened in England?
Well, he decided that, I should come and see America because we were sort of talking marriage, but he wanted to be sure that I could live here. And I said, look, I could live anywhere. It doesn't make any difference. And he had been interviewed by the press, and it came out in the papers that we were a romantic item. And my parents, and he was quoted as saying that he'd been, when I had introduced him to my parents, I had told him, now don't tell them that you've been married and divorced. And don't swear.
That's keeping everything from your parents.
Right.
Like they can't find out right away.
Well, they did when they read the newspaper, yes.
Is that right? But you had this great love affair, and was it a push and pull whether you should leave England or?
Oh, no, I was ready to go. I was going to go with him, and then my mother read in the newspaper that day that he'd been divorced, not once but twice.
Oh dear.
And so they forbade me to go. They said I couldn't go.
I'm going to hold this up because I think this is so great. You brought this scrapbook, and it says,
Father bans trip to America, Aldo Ray and the Major General's daughter.
the Major General's daughter.
Yes.
No way, right?
Right, no way whatsoever.
And so then it was in the papers all the time. I'm going to turn it over because I thought this was great too.
Right.
And it says,
Aldo is told you cannot take our daughter.
so your father was giving an interview, Aldo was giving an interview, oh, they were just making it all
they
up?
were making it up. You
And
know,
down here, this is a great
it was
picture.
pretty close. Well, that,
Up here, yeah.
oh right, yes. And the one there where I'm holding the rose and crying, they built it up that I was crying because I was saying goodbye to him and I couldn't leave with him. But in actual fact, it was the photographers that were surrounding us, and I was getting claustrophobic with all the flashlights trying to say goodbye to him, that it was the photographers that made me cry.
So here we are. You got married, you came to America, and you became an actor's wife.
Right.
No longer an actress.
No, I had to make a choice.
Between acting and being an actor's wife.
Right, yes. And I was perfectly happy to give up acting.
So you had 2 sons, you were a stay-at-home mother.
Right.
And then the divorce came.
The divorce came. It took a while. And I didn't have to work for a couple of years. And then I always knew I wanted to be a casting director.
Well, that's what I wondered. Why would you think about casting directing? I mean, it's very difficult work and very specialized.
Well, I don't think it's difficult. It's like when someone says to me, "Can you teach me how to cast?"
Mm-hmm.
And
What do you do?
I say, well, there's no, you can't teach it.
Mm.
You either have to have, you know, the instinct and the desire and the motivation. It has to be natural.
I mean, you've worked a lot, you've done a lot of movies, but let's talk about the association with David Lynch, because it started, what, with Blue Velvet?
With Blue Velvet, yes.
And how did you just kind of know what he was looking for and what to look for?
Not so much in Blue Velvet. I mean, I did know, and I loved the fact that for the Isabella Rossellini role, he said, "Now, I don't want the perfect body." He said, "I want somebody, you know, that's just maybe a little tiny bit overweight and not perfect." And I thought, oh, how wonderful.
We like him.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then did you go on to cast everyone in that?
Yes.
So there's not a division between supporting and
Not from the casting point of view, no.
so
No.
what's the process? Do you get
It's
these?
It's completely different from David than it is for anyone else in the business.
Oh, okay.
He does it his own way, which took a little bit of getting used to, because he doesn't, I mean, some directors would like to have perhaps anywhere between 6 and 50 people come in to read for the same role.
So you would be, other directors would be looking for headshots like this.
Right.
You would give them headshot after headshot.
Well,
from
actually,
60
no, it's the other way around. I wouldn't give them a headshots. They're really not interested in seeing. I go through the headshots and then decide who I think looks right. If I know them, it's easy, but then there are new people all the time coming in, so I have to pre-read
I see.
the new people and see.
And one of the things that you devised, I think, you said you take photographs.
Well, I did this principally for David.
David Lynch. So this
Because-
is a huge book.
And I
Sorry.
have about 17 of them like that.
Is that right?
Yes.
And they're all filled with photographs like this? And what does
Yes.
he see in these?
Well, he doesn't like the auditioning process. He doesn't like to audition. He just likes to look at photos.
Ah,
So when he would go through the professional headshots, I would say, but David, that person doesn't really look like that.
oh, that's the problem. I see.
And so that's...
So we'd see a professional headshot, and then we'd see something that you took.
Yes, yes.
I see.
And then also when there's so many of them, you know, it's much easier to go through a photo album where there are like hundreds of photos, you know.
Really? Oh,
like,
really?
You can see 6 at the same time, and it's much easier for him.
Do you tape the people that you're casting?
Mostly, yes.
You do? You put them on tape too?
I mean, on Mulholland Drive, what I did, he picked photos of the people he liked, and then I taped the interview as if he was in the room with us. So we just spoke on camera.
About you, so that he would call you in as a casting director.
It actually came through another casting director who was going to be doing it,
I see.
and then she couldn't for whatever reason, and he said, well, can you recommend anyone?
I
And
see.
she recommended me.
So is most of your business by word of mouth?
Yes.
Most of
Yeah.
it is. Well, I don't know if we've got some people out in the audience who are going to be casting directors, but I think you brought some real insight into what's happening when they look at a film. So I thank
Well,
you, Joanna,
Thank you very much. Thank
and
you.
thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles.